All right, sorry. All right, go ahead. Hi, Janet.
Hi.
Hi, Jana. I was just asking a question about the accounting for the cash dividends. So, there like most of the things I feel like we've looked at before, it's almost like you record it like one time. And then like it's kind of there and done. But when I was looking at accounting for cash dividends, you have to like put it in for the date of declaration, and then we don't do it for a date of record, like it says no journal entry, but then you do
Mhm.
for the date of payment. Is that
Uh-huh.
right?
That's correct. So what happens is, so if we're thinking like a corporation that has a board of directors, what happens in real life is management will propose a dividend. They'll say, hey, based on our earnings for the last quarter, we think we can afford to pay a dividend of this much. And then the board of directors votes on it. And if they say yes, then they choose this date where they announce it. Okay. And or they declare it, I guess would be the right word. And so upon that date, when they say, okay, all shareholders as of this date are going to receive a dividend of 5 cents per share or something like that. As soon as they do that, they've created a liability. They've created a payable because
Okay.
they owe those shareholders money now. So that first transaction um, will record no cash goes yet. So instead, we're gonna do like a dividend and then a dividend payable for whatever the amount, 5 cents times the number of shares we have outstanding. So that'll be our initial transaction upon declaration. Then we have the date of record. That's the date which anybody who owns the stock will get a dividend. So if you sell stock that you have before that date, you don't get the dividend. If you purchase the stock before that date, then you do get the dividend. So nothing's really happening there financially, but it's an important date in the dividend declaration because it tells us, you know, it sort of like solidifies this is the date that somebody has to be a shareholder in order to get the dividend.
Ah, okay.
Okay,
And then when it's actually paid out is
right,
that's the like date of payment
right.
then.
And then we'll
Okay.
debit that dividend payable because we no longer owe it, and we'll credit cash because we're actually paying out cash.
Okay. And that's where I get it backwards, because when you credit cash, we're actually decreasing it because
Right.
it's an asset.
Have you worked in banking, Annalisa?
No.
No. So a lot of times people who work in banking or whose main financial experience has been just in banking, this is confusing to them because banks will say a debit is an increase to your account. I mean, a decrease to your account, and a credit is an increase to your account. And the reason it's confusing is because the bank is speaking from their perspective. So your savings account, which is an asset to you, is actually a liability to the bank. It is a debt. They've borrowed money from you. And so when they increase that account, they're saying that they're crediting it, they're increasing their liability. And then if you pull money out, they're paying you back, so to speak. And so that's a debit to them or a decrease to their liability. But it's really confusing because for most of us, bank accounts are an asset. And so it's backward. For me, like the way that works for my brain, and I don't know why it works for my brain, is I know that that basic accounting equation is assets equal liabilities plus equity. And so if I remember that assets increase with a debit and decrease with a credit, then I know that liabilities and equity are just the opposite of that. So for memorizing the one, I've got all three. I don't know if that makes sense because if they're on the opposite side of the equal sign, they've got to behave in the reverse way, is how my brain remembers it. So I'm like, okay, if I memorize assets, increase with debit, decrease with credit, then I know liabilities and equity are the opposite. Um,
So, but like an expense falls under that right side of the equation, but it
mhm.
is an increase on a debit, which is the same as an asset, right?
Right. And that's because an expense actually reduces equity, right? If I pay an expense, I'm reducing my equity in the business. I think, so I think what's really
Okay.
hard to wrap, it was for me for years to wrap my brain around, is that equity, all equity is is it's the amount of the business that actually belongs to the owner. And so the business has assets, right? Cash and buildings and whatever it has, okay? And those assets either belong to lenders, a bank or other lenders, or they belong to the owners. In other words, that's really the only two people who can own the assets of the business: people who've lent money to it, or people who have invested in it. And so that's why assets equal liabilities plus equity. So the assets are made up of either liabilities or equity. And so then when I spend assets on an expense, what I'm doing is reducing my equity. If you think about it, if I spend an asset, all I can really be doing is either buying another asset or paying off a debt or reducing my equity on an expense.
Okay.
If my assets go up, then all that could really be happening is either another asset went down, like I got equipment in exchange for cash, right? Or I could be taking a debt, right? If my asset increased, I could be borrowing that money, or my equity could be increasing in the form of revenue. And so, like, it's this weird thing that, like, it took me a long time of like working with it to just be like, oh, the interrelationships here aren't as complex as I originally thought. But when it's new, it seems like so much. And so
Yeah.
you're not alone in that, just so you know. It's
Good to know. Okay. I can practice that. Thank you.
Janet, did you have any specific questions or broader general questions? You just coming in to say hi?
I just want to come and listen. I did have a question. I don't know if we can ask questions from the quiz access, but now, and I wrote it down and I can't find my paper that I wrote which one. So I'm just trying to look through to see. I mean, it was just a question of where, I'm trying to find the question, which one it was.
Let's see. From the chapter 11 quiz access.
No, it's just the chapter 2, I think, the one that's due tomorrow. Let me see. I did this late last night and my mind wasn't on it, and so I
Yep, I
did.
totally get it.
If I just keep going straight all day and stay in it, I'm great and can remember. If I get sidetracked and I come back, then I'm like, what was I doing?
While you're looking for that, can I ask a general question about like quiz access and quizzes in comparison to exam?
Sure.
Okay, so I know the exam is proctored, no notes, all of that. I'm not clear. I'm assuming there's a time limit on it. Is it more like there's this, is there any of the like check your work like what we have where you can redo on it, or is it like, is it multiple choice? Is it fill in the blank kind of a thing? And then you fill it out and then you just don't know until you submit the whole thing. Like, is there anything you can say about like just the
Yeah.
general format of it?
Yeah. And so it's multiple choice exam. And so, but it still has problems, but like, you'll have 4 options. So it'll be like, what would be the credit to this account given this information or whatever. So it's
Right.
multiple choice. There are a couple of like fill in the blank where it will have you do it and just type in the value, whatever it is. But that's only like maybe 5 or fewer questions. I'd have to look to be
Okay.
sure, but
So
it's
kind of
very
like the
few.
smart book.
Right. But so there are no checks. There are no, so this is what I'm learning is like very frustrating to a lot of students, is they feel like we get all this feedback on the homework, but like there's no feedback on the exam. You submit it, and then I am not even allowed to, like, I can't like let you see what you missed or anything. At least not in general. I can provide, well, I mean, not in specific. In general, I can say like the exam's broken down by the chapter learning objectives, and I can say like you missed questions that relate to these topics, these learning objectives. But I guess it's because they're trying to protect the exam. and they don't want
Right.
us putting it out there, but I know it's frustrating to a lot of students because it's like, I just need to see what I missed.
Yeah. So is it like a 100-question 2-hour exam? Like, as far as like carving out time and preparation for it, is there any with that, or
Yeah, so you
are we
have,
just kind of?
I'm trying to, let me look real quick. It's not 100 questions. It's like 40 or 50 questions. And they give you, let me just go to it and I'll tell you exactly, because I don't have that memorized, like exactly how many questions it is. Let's see, where you at exam?
Are they, what do you call them? Not a cumulative, but do they, like for the, I know our next exam is like next week, but is the next exam still covering everything we've learned, or is it just the,
It just covers the chapters from
the
from the
last year?
past exam, but the
Okay,
final exam is cumulative.
okay.
So let's see. Oops, Siri is trying to answer my questions. Let's see. So it looks like we have, I just pulled up the exam and I'm looking at it a little bit here. So there is a time limit, but it's like, it's 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 essentially unlimited. It's like 5 hours, you know, they just put like the max. I thought that they had a time limit of like 180 minutes on it in the past. So that might get, I would say I think it's a 3 hour maximum, but like, I think
Okay.
most people would go out of their mind if they actually spent 3 hours doing it. Like it would, at some point, your brain is done, right?
Yeah.
So it's
I just
55,
came out of math that was 2 hours, so I'm like, what
it's
I would do.
55 questions, and this says, the thing I'm looking at right now, the time limit says that it's 340 minutes, but I remember in the past it was 180, which I'm guessing most of the instructors now have learned to just like be quiet when it's like that, because if somebody goes back to the course lead and says, hey, this is wrong, then they have to change it for everybody, and it's a big hassle, and
Oh yeah.
nobody's gonna get some advantage out of spending 340 minutes that they wouldn't have had at 180 on 55
No,
questions,
I'm not gonna remember more in
especially
340.
if you can't really look stuff up, right? Because Proctorio. And
Yeah.
let me just put this out there. Some people are really freaked out by Proctorio. It's like evil robots watching them or something. I think it's not evil. I think it's just a robot. But anyway, the way Proctorio works is looking for certain cues, like if you're looking away from the screen a lot, then it will flag it. So the little AI will say this person's eyes keep looking away from the screen for long periods of time. But like normal looking away, it doesn't flag it. And the worst thing that can happen if, let's say, because people will be like, my kid ran in the room, don't fail me. Like the worst thing that happens if the kid comes in the room and someone turns to attend to the child is it will get flagged, and then a real person will review it. And the real person will send a note to the instructor that says, the student, stop taking the exam for 10 minutes to deal with their child running into the room or whatever. And then it'll give me like a timestamp. And if I want, I can go review it. And so like things that would be like false positives, I always tell people, don't worry about them, because all that does is it instigates a real person reviewing it. And the worst case scenario is they would send it to the instructor and the instructor would have to review it. I mean, that's good when there's legitimate cheating. And we've had that. Like I had one last semester where someone, I don't know why, but they're Googling stuff on their other screen thinking it's not getting picked up by the computer. And you're like, why
Gosh.
would you do that? But I get it, because the reason they would do that is we put these super high stakes exam in here and they're super nervous about doing poorly on them to the point where they make choices they wouldn't normally make, Anyway, so I just want to put out there, like, don't worry. If you're not cheating, then Proctorio's no sweat. Like it's not going to falsely fail you or something like that. There's people who are afraid it's like going to dump them out of the exam and just be like, fail. And it doesn't. The worst thing it does is send an email to me saying,
Review.
there was a weird thing happening there. Review it.
Does it allow you to have like, okay, so I'm trying to like memorize things and do that. Will we be allowed to have like a piece of paper? So if I sit down to take the exam, I can like write down things I'm trying to remember as I go into it. And then I can, like, if I create my own notes during the exam, is that
Yes,
acceptable or no?
it is. And so what they recommend, and I don't really know what this proves, but they recommend you showing your blank piece of paper, both sides of it to the camera. You know, I mean, again, if somebody really wanted to, they just have another sheet of paper down on the table and they, you know, but if people are going to cheat, they're going to find a way. The other thing is you can use Excel. And so again, it has to be a blank Excel, but once the test it starts, you can put whatever you want in there. So, you
Okay.
know, and so you can use a calculator, you can use Excel, and you can use like what's it called, scratch paper and a pencil,
Okay.
just
Awesome.
not notes. And again, I've had a few people complain to me about that, and that is not within my control. It's not something I'm allowed to change.
Yeah. No. Totally makes sense. That helps me just like kind of in my preparation when I'm thinking about getting ready for it. So that's good. Thank you.
So is
Yeah.
it the test right from the textbook, kind of the same ones as same format from the text, or is it a completely different?
So it does come from the same, from McGraw-Hill Connect, the same publisher, but it does feel a bit different than the assignments in that instead of it being like worksheets that you're completing, it's multiple choice. And
Okay,
so, but the wording is similar, and it's, you know, it's the same textbook publisher or an author that makes the text,
okay.
which is actually improvement over the last textbook where it felt totally different and people were really frustrated by that. Even though you're like, it's the same concepts, it just feels different. Did you find the question you were looking for?
I did, I think it's number 5, the analyzing, it's for accounts, accounts payable, accounts receivable, and cash, the analyzing account entries and balances. And
Okay,
for some reason, my mind just went blank.
let me get there. So what I'll share with the screen is, it's called preview mode in the instructor login. And so it's a version of the problem and it has answers already in it, but they'll usually be different than your answers because it's set up to give different numbers to everybody. If they do match your numbers exactly, just maybe go buy a lottery ticket later. Like maybe it's just your lucky day. And just, hey, BYU powers that be, I am not actually suggesting people gamble or play the lottery. It's just a joke. Okay, just in case, you know, I don't know. All right. So is it all of it, or was it like,
Okay.
is this the
I think,
one?
yeah, let's see, so had, I have accounts payable. So I couldn't find it in the book. And like I said, it was just late last night, so maybe I haven't gone through it all the way.
No, and it's so you know, in essence, all they're doing, because several people have had a hard time with this, and I guess not seeing this as kind of like a T account, because it looks a little different than like a T account, but it really is, you know. So the first thing you have to know, it doesn't tell you if it's a debit or credit balance. You have to recognize, okay, it's a payable, so it's a liability, so that beginning balance will be a credit. And then had accounts
So,
payable and 139,000 on October 31st. So it gives us in that first line the beginning balance and the ending balance. Then it gives us the total purchases, which would increase our payable purchases on account. And then it leaves us to have to calculate the amount we've paid. So it's like a little algebra problem there, right? Where we say beginning balance plus purchases minus payments equals the ending balance. So I have to say 165,000 plus 294 plus X equals 139,000 and solve for X.
okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
I know sometimes you see it later and you're like, well, that's incredibly easy. My brain was addled at 1 a.m. or whenever when I was looking at it.
That is exactly. And that's what I was doing on another problem. I knew how to do the equation. I've done it all the time, and I had to have my daughter come and do it. And I'm like, it was frustrating.
Yeah.
Just tired.
There is something about accounting that leads our brains to like overcomplicate it. And so because the math is never hard, it's like always easy math, right? It's plus and minus, rarely even do we have to multiply. But this whole like putting things into the right account and categorizing them as a debit or as a credit, that just, it's easy for that to get like tangled up in my brain at least. And so sometimes even to this day, I'll be working on something and it'll seem crazy complex. And I usually just have to step back and say, like 100% chance you are overcomplicating this. Like just think in terms. I think what it is we live in a really global world with like tons of information, and
Mhm.
accounting requires us to narrow. I always say open your mind. For accounting, it should be like narrow your mind, like only think about this one account and what's occurring with this one account right now. Like my wife hates accounting. She's an artist, and her brain is so global. She sees a whole she paints murals, and she can build this whole project in her mind. But to try to like get rid of all that extraneous and just say, okay, what was the beginning balance? What was the ending balance? I know what the sales on account were, so I must have received this amount. She hates that. She's really smart and she's capable, but it's really painful for her. That's okay. When I look, go
Oh,
ahead.
go ahead. Sorry. No, go ahead.
I say when I look at her painting stuff and she's like only a part of the way done, I'm just like, that's never gonna work out. And then it does every time. I'm like, I should get accustomed to the fact people pay her thousands of dollars to paint pictures. Apparently she's good at it.
That's so awesome. That's cool.
No one pays me thousands of dollars for a spreadsheet. Well, I guess they do, but it's, it's in the form of being hourly billing. Seems different.
Oh, I remember in high school and I only took accounting in high school and I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. I wanted to go out into accounting, but they scared me off with the math class that they said nobody could pass. And so I stopped and changed my major. But I love it. I mean, I remember that sitting there in accounting class and I'm like, okay, where did this go? Where did this go? And the teacher would sit down. Okay, well, we did it. Okay, that's right. So, but I love.
So other questions, either general or specific?
I don't.
Or are we good right now? I mean, that's okay too. We don't have to stay on here for an hour if we're good after half an hour, right? That's okay.
Yeah.
Not like church, like where all meetings follow the gas law, right? How gas expands to fill its container, meetings expand to fill their allotted time. Never had a ward council end short, so.
I think
I'm
that's the only
pretty
one.
good where I'm at. When I embark
Okay.
in new, I'm gonna have more new for sure. But
Right. Well, and
your explanation earlier really helped.
good. Well, thanks. Okay. Well, I mean, if we're good, then it's good to be good.
Yep, we're good.
All right. And like I said, Annalisa, did you say you used one of the, you met with one of the
With the
tutors?
tutoring, yes. Oh my gosh, she was amazing. It was so helpful. Janet, if you haven't yet, so the first couple of weeks, going through things, it was just taking me a really long time. And like I was using all the try 3 times and trying to figure it out and do that. And I knew I was a presenter this last week. And so I was nervous. So I went ahead and like scheduled something ahead of time in case I got stuck doing that. And I ended up doing my presentation before I met with the tutor. But once I met with her and like walked through it, like within an hour, I had done 5 times as much as I would have been able to do. Like I was spending way more time because I just wasn't understanding it as well. And she just helped explain and talk me through it and was so encouraging and motivating. She was like, "You're smart. You've got this." Like I had a little cheerleader that was helping me understand it. And I just felt she gave me a lot more confidence and like, yeah, I can do this. And I was understanding it so much better. So yeah, I'll definitely be going back and booking more.
Did you just make an
appointments.
appointment through this tutoring resources link here?
I think you have to go to iLearn once you get there, like it has you go and then you log in again, and you pick your specific class and then you can schedule like an hour block. It pops up a calendar for you and you can schedule an hour block that works for you. And then we just went through, she was great. It was anything and everything I had a question about, she answered and we went backwards. I said, I ended up getting this one right, but I don't feel confident. Can you tell me more about it?
This thing right here,
So,
arrange a live tutoring appointment. Is that
yeah.
it? Yeah.
Yep.
The reason I'm asking is in case other people who may watch this video later are like, I don't even know how to do this, or I didn't know that was there. I try to like tell everybody, like, because not only do they have like live one-on-one appointments, you can also post questions here and they answer them. And I think they also do group meetings sometimes where people can
Yeah,
go
I
in.
noticed that in my email. I'll get like an inscribe thing saying, hey, we're starting a live session in like an hour. Like that pops up in my email, and you can join a group, like live kind of ad hoc section. And you can also search, like they'll post like on the page you were on before with the tutoring resources. It'll say like chapter 2 question this we're talking about in here. So you can like find like what that is, which is really super helpful too.
Okay, yeah, that's good to know. I know in the past they've sent us an email saying like, here's when the tutoring sessions will be, and then I post that to the announcements, but we haven't gotten one of those yet this semester, so I don't know.
Yeah, I notice it comes to my BYU email, and
Okay,
it's
maybe they're
usually
just sending it
kind
out to
of
everybody instead of
short
to the,
notice, but it is like we're doing it at this time, and they vary.
right.
So, but that's been super helpful.
Okay, yeah, thanks. I mean, like I said, I hope others will watch this video of this little meeting we've had here and be like, oh, I want to use that. So just another resource, right? Hopefully
Yeah.
it will help. All right, well, terrific. Any final questions or words before we get out of here?
No, this is
Hey,
great.
No.
Thank you.
Janet, would you be willing to? I told you, Annalisa, if someone else came in, I'd ask them to say the prayer. But
Oh.
when I was
There
a
you go.
bishop, and I would have like the youth in, I'd always be like, all right, there's only 2 of us and there's 2 prayers, so you want to open or close, but now there's 3 of us.
All right.
So if I get on and I see nobody else, I just get off quick, right?
Yeah,
Before
or no, just say no, and then I'll say it. Like, I mean,
No, it's fine.
it's not that big of a deal.
All right. Our dear Father in heaven, we are so very grateful for this opportunity to participate in school and not being able to learn and gain knowledge. We're grateful for the Pathways and BYU program that allows us this opportunity. We're thankful for the teachers and Brother Fox and those that are willing to help us learn. We are grateful for the many blessings that thou blesses us with every day. And we pray as we move forward that we will seek thy help and guidance in all that we do. And as we gain this knowledge, that we will seek to help others. We give thanks again, and we love thee very much, Father. And we pray for these things humbly in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a terrific week. And if you get stuck, don't be afraid to reach out, and I'll do my best to help.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so
Take
much.
care.
All right, thanks.
Bye.
Bye-bye.